رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم أما بعد اللهم يسر وأعن رب العالمين. First, I would like to thank everybody who had made it here today. Jazakumullahu khaira. And I hope that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala benefits us with whatever we are saying today and with whatever we are hearing, and that this would be an effort that we can build on, whether as a collective, as an organization, or maybe one of us would hear something today that can spark something in him and her, and he can take or she can take that and develop it into something big. And this is always, our hope. A hope of any speaker, or a hope of anyone who's learning something and trying to teach it, is that perhaps I will encounter, sometimes by accident, without preparation, someone who could listen to this, and his life and her life will be transformed, and as a result, he'll be able to transform the lives of many. Right? And so this is our dua, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will benefit us with what we hear, and benefit everybody else with it. And so inshallah, before I start, because we want to do pray Asr, if someone can stop me at around 5:15, inshallah, just let me know when it's 5:15, then we can pray Asr and then we can continue. So I want to present sort of a conceptual understanding of da'wah, so sort of break or dissect da'wah down into its components, 1, 2, 3, 4. And when you think of da'wah, and the reason why we want to do this is when we want to understand da'wah better. Because if I want to say, I want to do da'wah, or you want to do da'wah, what does that mean? So, I'm hearing an echo. Should I keep this down? Is that okay? You're fine? Okay. So what does that mean? So we have to break it down into its components. So if you think about it, what is da'wah made of? It's made of the person who's making the da'wah, giving the da'wah, delivering the message, the person who's receiving it, the content that you're trying to communicate, and the way that you're doing it. Right? 1, 2, 3, 4. The caller, which is a da'i or a da'iyah, and the one who's being called. What are you saying to them, or what are you calling them to do and believe, and the way that you're doing it. These are the components of da'wah. And we're going to focus, inshallah, on each one of them and try to emphasize certain points when it comes to each one of them, to each one principle. But before that, there are two questions that cut through all of this and cover it. And those two questions are, why are we doing it, and how are we doing it? Right? So Ibn Qayyim rahimahullah says that any action that you do, and I want you to remember this, because it doesn't only pertain to da'wah, it pertains to anything that you want to do. He says, anything that you want to do, right, there are two records. Right? Think of the angels of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala writing down this action. And what they're going to write about it is, why is he doing it, and how is he doing it? And if you know the why and if you know the how, your action is successful. If you miss the why or if you miss the how, your action is not successful. Sometimes we miss one of them, sometimes we miss both of them. So the first one, the why, is the intention. And it affects a lot of the four components that we talked about. What is your intention? It's based on who I am, who is this person, and the message itself dictates my intention. So I'm not going to be abstract. I'm going to give you, inshallah, a few examples. What is my intention when I want to give da'wah? Why am I giving it? Is it because it's fun? Right? Now some of us, or some of our intentions might be that da'wah is fun. Meaning, it's glamorous type of work. Right? And sometimes da'wah can be considered a buzzword. Oh, what do you want to do? Let's do da'wah. Right? Why? Because I can use my skills, I can use my talents, I can meet people, I can get out of the house. There are a lot of reasons why you make da'wah. Some of them are good, some of them are bad. Why do you want to do a da'wah? I want to be famous. I want people to recognize me. Right? I want to be praised. I want to be known. I want the thrill of talking to people. So some of these intentions are good, some of them are bad. So the question here is, why are you doing da'wah for the sake of Allah? Da'wah itself. What is it? It's to invite to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as our dear brother said. To invite to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So it's not to invite to myself. You're not calling people to come to you and recognize me and praise me and listen to me. Right? As the messengers of Allah alayhimus salam, they were messengers, they were calling to a higher being, not themselves, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that's the intention. That should be the main intention. Now it's possible to have secondary intentions that do not contradict the main intention. Like what? I have a talent and I want to use it. I want to employ it in something worthwhile and meaningful. I look around, this door is closed, this door closed, but subhanAllah, the door of da'wah is open. Yes, use your talent. That could be a legitimate reason for you to make da'wah, but not the primary reason, because the primary reason should always be Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. A secondary reason that feeds into the primary one is, I have a talent, I have a passion, or simply, I want to get out of the house, I'm bored, right? That's fine. Find something useful to do. If I'm not doing something useful, I'm going to be doing something harmful and haram. This is a good substitute. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. This is a good reason for you to do da'wah. But again, you should always go back and have it be for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And you should do that before the action, during the action, and after the action. You're always checking. That is, okay, before I set out and go to salah, before I'm going to make this adhan, before I'm going to give the zakat, before I deliver the message. Why? So when you say why, your goals are clear. The steps that you're taking are clear. Now, while you're doing it, you have to also ask the same question. Why? Because you're not static. You don't live a static life. You're always changing. So while you're doing it, somebody is going to come and tell you, your da'wah is meaningless. Stop doing it. Your intention can change. Someone can come and tell you, MashaAllah, very great, very wonderful, your intention changes. He praises you, your intention changes. You face obstacles, your intention changes. So you always have to say, remind yourself, why am I doing it? Why am I doing this again? Why am I doing this again? It's Allah, it's Allah, it's Allah. It's not the organization, right? It's not the number of people who have attended. It's not how many people are listening to me, right? You know, so, some of the, they said that one of the tabi'een, his name is Ata. They said when Ata passed away, the number of people who would sit and listen to Ata were 7. And they said when he passed away, we considered him to be the best person on the face of this earth. Among the people who had lived so far, were living so far, when he passed away, we considered him to be the best person. And the number of people who were sitting and listening to him were 7. So if he was a person who was worried about numbers, okay, he may not be teaching those people. But it wasn't like that. So again, ask you while you're doing the action, and then afterwards, you come back and you say, was this for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? What can I learn from it? That's the feedback. That's the feedback loop. What can I learn from this so I can take to the next time? So your intention. The next question is, how are we doing this? And when you ask yourself how you want to do this, I want to just emphasize 2 points here. It's an expansive topic. 2 points. One, you have an example. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has provided you with many examples. All the lives of the prophets of Allah alayhimus salam is an example in da'wah. So you have a rich resource of what they said, how they started, how they were received, how they endured, how they dealt with success. All of that is there in the Quran and also in the life and the sunnah of the Messenger sallallahu alayhi wasallam. So you ask yourself, where's my inspiration? What is my model? It is right there in the Quran and in the sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam. So this is how to do it. Another thing, and that might seem so self-evident, is that haram hinders da'wah. It's an obstacle in the face of da'wah. It doesn't enhance it. Whether it is personal haram, right, or haram that we inject in the da'wah methods. Personal haram, that if I'm doing something wrong, right, that is an impediment in the reception of the message, whether people know about it or not. Now, as soon as you start giving da'wah for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you become an example, right? Whether you like it or not, people start looking at you and judging you according to the message that you're delivering. Even non-Muslims, right? Even non-Muslims. You know, as an example, for instance, that I just heard recently, as a Muslim woman that was presenting Islam. But she wasn't, in her behavior, in her appearance, was not reflecting, right, the Islamic principles. So one of the audience, and who is non-Muslim, asked her, do you believe in the Quran? Because she's presenting the Quran. He said, you don't believe in the Quran, right? She said, no, indeed, I believe in the Quran. Of course, how can I not? Well, I'm Muslim. He says, but you're not doing this and you're not doing that. So how can you actually tell us about Islam and you're not reflecting this in your life? So you become an example. So a sin, right, or a mistake that we're either hiding or is public becomes an obstacle in the acceptance of our da'wah. Becomes an obstacle. Another thing is also, if we introduce the mistake in the method, in the way that we make the da'wah, is also an obstacle. For instance, let me ask you this. I'm trying to make da'wah. I want to collect people. I notice, for instance, that people are not coming. They're not listening. I make food. A lot of people show up. More people show up. That's not wrong, right? There's nothing wrong with that. But I say, okay, I need more people. So I hire some people and I have a concert, singing and whatever, right? And more people show up. Now what happens here is that you're starting to compromise the message itself because you want to attract more people. You will attract more people, but you have compromised and endangered the message itself. Right? You know, a very interesting thing, you know, some people used to fabricate a hadith long time ago, fabricate a hadith because they felt that we can bring people closer to Islam. And see, this is sort of a twisted logic. Twisted logic, meaning that just like today, and if you're familiar with some Muslim countries, they do that today, and sometimes we do that with our children, right? I don't think you do it, but you want to convince your child not to go outside, right? At night. You say there's a ghost or there's a monster, and this monster will come and he will kidnap you if you go outside. That will guarantee that your child will never go out of the home at night. He's afraid. You can do the same thing with religion. Right? So if I don't want him to do that, I can fabricate a hadith that says, the Prophet ﷺ says, any child below 15 who goes out, at night without the permission of his parents, this and that will happen to them. And the child will believe it, and he'll stay home. Now, the same thing happened with what? With a fabricated hadith. Some people thought people are not reading a lot of the Quran. So I'm going to put for every surah a specific virtue. Whoever reads this surah will have this. Whoever reads this surah will have that. He says, then they told him, why are you doing this? The Prophet ﷺ says, if you lie against me, right, you're going to go to hellfire. He said, I'm lying for him. Again, and that is ignorance. That is ignorance. But we actually practice that type of ignorance when we start lying about Islam or compromising the message. Sometimes we're confronted with difficult questions. Right? Maybe we'll come to that, inshallah. Difficult questions. And then we may lie. Oh, that's not in the Quran. Or that's not in the Sunnah. Or that's not why. That's an easy answer. It's an easy answer. Or we start twisting the message. Right? Or we start to transmit the message, but with, this is another sin, envy, gossip. I'm competing with another organization. I'm competing with another man, another da'iyah. So here my intention is not, I'm doing it for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but no, I'm competing with this organization that is attracting more people than I am, or this speaker who is attracting more people than I am. So we start competing, right, for glory, worldly glory, rather than the obedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So these are the two questions that I wanted to emphasize. Why are we doing this and how are we doing it? I want to move from that, inshallah, into tackling the 4 fundamentals of da'wah. Do you remember what those are again? I said that da'wah, right, has 4 foundations. So the first is, what is that? The one who calls to Islam. Then the one who receives the message. The third is the content of the message itself. And the last one is the method. So I want to do first the one who's calling to Islam and what this person needs. First, an intention. We talked about that. That's the very first thing that you want to ask yourself. Is this being done for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Because it's an act of ibadah. It's really an act of ibadah. This is something, and I don't want to talk really about the importance of da'wah. but it's an act of ibadah that you can say to yourself, this is a thing that can save me from hellfire. This is a thing that can take me to heaven. Before anything else and more than anything else. You know how the Prophet ﷺ says in the hadith that if there is a slave and you free the slave, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala releases and frees, by each limb from that man or that woman, your limb from hellfire. So you freed him, so because you freed his hand and his feet and his head and his body from servitude, slavery, Allah frees your hands and your body and your head from also servitude and slavery in hellfire. So how much more when you bring a person to Islam and save him from the slavery of disbelief and take him to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that's the intention. This is the thing that can take me to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and save me. And when you really have that intention, your da'wah will be different. Again, as I said, the other